Imagine that out of nowhere, every single state in the United States issued a recall for the same items that you had the most faith in, the ones that are piled up in Costco freezers and pantries all around the country. This is not merely a rumor or an exaggeration. This is an official alert that has Kirkland's name written all over it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has finally issued a warning as of this moment. You should cease the consumption of 8 different food products from Kirkland before it is too late. Give it some thought. These are not expensive goods that are difficult to find. They are essential items in daily life, and they are used by working-class families as well as pensioners who are living on fixed incomes. However, there were a few of batches that carried silent pollutants, concealed metals, or microbes rather than sustenance. The Food and Drug Administration did not define these as minor problems. They were Class 1 recalls in a number of instances, which are the type of recalls that are associated with hospital visits, infections that could result in death, and other serious conditions. Even the most reliable bargain brands are failing in the basic areas. This begs the question, how safe is your next meal? The Downturn Report is where the truth becomes personal. Today we are going to reveal the recalls that are of the utmost importance. You absolutely have to quit consuming these 8 food products from Kirkland immediately. In addition to presenting you with safer choices that you can depend on at the conclusion of each part, we will also provide you with information on how to avoid becoming anxious or upset until you have had enough time to think things through. Number 1. Eggs. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been voicing concerns about the shortcuts that are taken by the major grocery store chains in the United States, and Kirkland eggs, which are sold by Costco, are now Exhibit A in this case. The label quietly stated that the eggs were organic and pasture-raised, but beneath that halo, there were about 260,000 eggs that had been pulled from stores all across the South. Following the discovery by regulators of cartons that had made their way into your grocery basket, despite the fact that they were never supposed to be sold, that incident occurred. This was not considered a small problem by the Food and Drug Administration, but rather a serious issue. They issued Kirkland a Class 1 recall, which is the same level that is used for hazards that could potentially result in fatalities. Families believed they were purchasing safety, but what they actually purchased was a carton of Russian roulette. This is the harsh pill that they must swallow. It is irrelevant to Salmonella whether or not you are making every social security check stretch as far as possible. It is capable of causing fever, vomiting, and cramps that are so severe that they are debilitating. It can even progress into infections that affect the heart and joints. The chances of survival for older Americans who are already on many medications to manage conditions such as high blood pressure or diabetes are even lower. It is absolutely repulsive that the very company that founded its name on the promise of value almost offered illness as a breakfast item. Would you not agree? The pattern that we are unable to ignore is even more troubling. In other poultry and dairy industries, watchdogs have discovered such mistakes. What will happen next if Kirkland allows 260,000 eggs to pass through without being inspected? A nationwide outbreak that attracts more attention than any recall in history. They discuss the newly established safety procedures, but where is the evidence that these procedures are being followed? Only company news releases are available. There are no independent tests or clear audits. Scandals will continue to occur if a system has normalized the use of shortcuts, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has stated. They start out small but rapidly grow into something much larger. The genuine concern is if Costco has plans to repair the cracks, or if they are just going to cover them with paint until the next time that they fall apart. There are eggs that are safer to consume available for those who are weary of playing roulette with their grocery cart. Vital Farms, Pete and Jerry's, and Happy Egg Co. are examples of companies who put their farms directly on the carton, track every stage of the process from the barn to the store, and subject themselves to certifications that are made available to the public. Yes, the price of a dozen is more, but that additional dollar serves as insurance against the subsequent hospital charge. Imagine that you are exchanging a pickup truck with brakes that do not function properly and a body that is both shaky and rusty for a car that has brakes that are fully functional. This time around, you reach your destination without losing your life, despite the fact that you still arrive at the same place. As a result, we are left to gaze at the gaps in the system and we are forced to question what additional pitfalls await us if a name that is considered trustworthy can allow something like this to happen. Are we currently observing the initial chapters of a scandal that will make the recall that is occurring today look like child's play, or will Kirkland make amends for its mistakes? You have the option to choose, but do not remain mute. You should express your concerns and share your predictions. This is because when trust is scrambled, the only way forward is to make a decision on whether businesses are still worthy of a spot on your breakfast table. The original sentence should be reworded to create a sentence that is more natural and comfortable to read while maintaining the original meaning. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. famously issued a warning that the risk does not always lie in the food itself, but rather in the unquestioning confidence that we give to companies. This past May, Costco issued a recall of the fresh and ready-to-eat food items that were available for purchase in all of its stores, which brought that warning to fruition. Those were the sandwiches and salads that were available for purchase at business centers in the states of Arizona, California, Nevada, and Washington. They were designed to be taken on the go. Listeria was found to be hiding on the equipment that was being used to produce these meals by the regulators, and 10 people had already been admitted to the hospital by the middle of May. That means 10 families are suddenly having to make adjustments to their life in order to accommodate hospital beds rather than kitchen tables. The horrible irony is that these meals are advertised as a blessing for seniors who are busy and for workers who make a meager wage. You can save time by avoiding the stove and getting one of these. However, if that sandwich is served with a side order of Listeria, what are you actually saving? The truth is not pretty. Contamination isn't something that magically materializes out of nowhere overnight. It thrives in storage units that do not fully comply with cold chain standards, proliferates on slicers that have not been adequately disinfected, and develops in corners that are overlooked during cleanups that are performed in a hurry. You are not receiving freshly prepared food. Instead, it is all hidden under the Costco glow. You are becoming both stingy and thoughtless. Consider the packaging that is used. There are no striking warnings, the expiration dates are written in small print, and the plastic is thin. It is almost as if they are depending on the fact that with aging eyes, people will not notice, and they are expecting that buyers will put their faith in the brand rather than reading the tiny print. Such a deceit and shrink wrap. And who is the one who is going to take the hit? It is not the CEOs who are responsible. He is an aged man whose immune system is unable to defend itself against attacks. The grandmother who believed that she was purchasing a meal that was safe. The church neighbor who was never able to return home after visiting the emergency room. What will happen next if this is the reality in 2025? It has been years since the same supplier was originally recognized as a concern for sanitary issues by watchdogs. So, will the next new scandal affect salads, wraps, or perhaps even the turkey slices that are packed within those sandwiches? When evidence demonstrates that shortcuts have been taken on multiple occasions, Costco's commitments to examine procedures are not worth much. This is not simply a single recall, but rather a symptom of a bigger issue in the way our food supply is managed, if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is correct. First, make the sale, then address the problem later, and hope that no one notices. However, you do have the ability to make a decision. There are safer alternatives that you can choose. Signature Select Deli sandwiches, Trader Joe's small batch packs, and even local independent delis, where the turkey is cut in front of you and the employee knows you by name, are all options for purchasing deli sandwiches. When it comes to eggs, Vital Farms may be the best. But when it comes to sandwiches, you should put your faith in the businesses that change their supply on a daily basis rather than weekly. Of course, you will be paying a slightly higher price, but at least you will not be gambling with your health by buying a lottery ticket. Is it your intention to continue incentivizing a system that plays with people's lives in order to increase speed and profitability? Or is it time to cut ties and give our support to companies that consider food safety to be a matter that cannot be compromised? Since we have not yet voiced our concerns, these recent recalls will continue to accumulate in the same way that undesirable leftovers do. Therefore, you should express your opinions. Tuna, which is listed as number 3. When cost-cutting becomes a regular practice, it is no longer simply a matter of figures on a balance sheet. It is a matter of life and death, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has made abundantly plain. As Geneva yellowfin tuna, which is associated with Costco, made headlines with a recall in early 2025, the warning now has a chillingly realistic aspect to it. What is the rationale for this? Lids that are easy to open yet are defective, resulting in a seal that is not airtight. This leaves the door wide open for Clostridium botulinum, a microbe that is responsible for causing botulism. Furthermore, botulism is not just a simple stomach ache or upset stomach. It causes muscle paralysis, deprives you of your capacity to swallow, and, in the most extreme situations, it shuts down your lungs. This is the section that causes the soul to tremble. As a mainstay in the cupboard, canned tuna was expected to be the safest option. It was intended to be as dependable as Sunday worship. However, this security blanket was torn apart, not because of bizarre accidents, but rather because packaging was contracted out to the company that made the lowest price. Imagine an intern who has been employed to repair a parachute due to the fact that the employer wished to cut costs by a small amount. That is how little consideration was given to ensuring that consumers were protected. Tuna is the protein that people turn to when they are retired, when they are employed but make just enough to cover their expenses, and when they are on a fixed income. Affordable, long-lasting, and nutritious. However, the recall reveals that the confidence is far more fragile than it appears. Dinner can quickly become a trip to the emergency room if there is a single damaged lid or a single weak seal. When botulism makes its presence known, it does not do so in a pleasant manner. Along with droopy eyelids and muscles that are choking, it also causes double vision when it sneaks in. How many elderly Americans believed that they were purchasing a meal that was safe, while in reality, what they took home was a risk about their chances of developing paralysis? From an operational standpoint, the scandal exposes irresponsibility that is masquerading as efficiency. The supplier who offered the lowest prices was awarded the contract to produce lids without any additional testing or strict supervision. Merely the baseless notion that the flaws were so insignificant that they did not warrant any attention. However, when you are providing food for millions of people, even a small mistake might be fatal. And what about the marketing sting? These cans were marketed as a high-quality yellowfin tuna product. Although the fish may be of the highest quality, the packaging makes it seem like it was purchased from a discount bin and that corners were used in its production. It is the sort of contradiction that makes you feel as though you were given a beat-up car after being guaranteed a Cadillac, an old car that has tires that are worn out. However, it is important to remember that if you are willing to walk away from the Kirkland roulette wheel, there are safer solutions available. Wild Planet, Safe Catch, and American Tuna are examples of brand names that prioritize seal integrity, packaging in smaller batches, and quality control checks conducted by third parties. Because someone truly cared about them after the factory lights went off, their cans feel sturdy. Without a doubt, you'll pay a somewhat higher price, but you should consider whether paying a few additional dollars is too much to ask to prevent having to use a ventilator. Therefore, here is the disquieting question. Is it time for you to start demanding that your food respect both your budget and your life? Or do you truly want your meals to continue to be treated as disposable, cheap enough that you are willing to jeopardize your health, and quick enough that you will forget about them? Be sure to express your own point of view. Since Kirkland continues to take shortcuts in order to solidify its reputation, the fissures are only going to get longer and wider. Once trust has been broken, there is no way to put it back together again, no matter how hard you try. Fourth on the list is salmon. This is the headline that nobody wanted to see. Following confirmation of contamination with Listeria monocytogenes, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, elevated the status of the recall of Kirkland's trademark smoked salmon to Class 1, which is the most serious designation that can be given. This occurred in January of 2025. In Florida, more than 100 packages were taken off the shelves at Costco. However, that figure just represents the part of the wall that we can see, while the rest of it remains hidden. The presence of Listeria in smoked salmon is not an accident, as it is not something that happens by chance. The system is malfunctioning. The experience of eating smoked salmon should be like tasting a slice of luxury that's been wrapped in plastic. It should be delicate, silky, and nearly feel like you are bringing home a slice of Europe for a Sunday brunch. However, if you peel aside the silver foil, you will discover that what you are really getting is corporate carelessness disguised in luxury packaging. When slicing machines are not cleaned, when deli lines cross-contaminate, or when cold chain vehicles are not inspected with sufficient rigor, Listeria grows. The original sentence should be restated in a way that is more natural, but that does not change the sentence's meaning in any way. Somebody didn't do the washing, somebody waved the truck through even though it was not cold enough, and Prophet murmured, "Ship it anyway." Now, consider the consumer who is most vulnerable to risk. Costco members who are older, retirees who have a certain amount of money to live on, and who consider smoked salmon a luxury item that they only consume on special occasions. Feeling a sense of pride, they settle down with bagels, cream cheese, and perhaps even champagne. However, there is an intruder hidden within that packet that has the potential to cause fever, confusion, and stiffness in the neck. In the most serious situations, it can even lead to meningitis or death. A single piece of paper, so thin that it is almost transparent, can make the difference between a celebration and a disaster. This is not what would be considered fine eating. It is treachery that has been sealed in a glossy foil wrapper. The problem is exacerbated by the branding gimmick. While the Kirkland signature badge attempts to convey a sense of handmade skill, the production process is nothing more than high-speed slicing and sealing. It is similar to paying for a prime rib and then being delivered reheated meat from the cafeteria on a silver platter. The reality is that shortcuts are taken and corners are cut, but what you are paying for is the illusion of both safety and elegance. However, salmon does not have to be a game of Russian roulette. There are safer options that can be used. AHAI Tower Wild Smoked Salmon, Duck Trap River of Maine, Durian of North Bristol, or even Trader Joe's Wild Sockeye. These brands make investments in facilities that are certified by HACCP, thorough sanitation, and validated cold chain transfers. Their production process involves publishing labeling that is easy to understand, running smaller batches, and obtaining materials in a way that is transparent. It is true that the price tag increases, but the peace of mind that you are actually purchasing is the most important factor. Being aware that your holiday brunch will not also serve as a visit to the emergency room, consider it to be similar to spending more money in exchange for a dependable technician. This time around, you do not have to be concerned about the brakes failing while you are driving on the interstate, even though the automobile is still drivable. Therefore, allow me to pose the following probing inquiry. Are you quite sure that you want to entrust your health to a corporation that gambles with cleaning schedules and cold storage? Or perhaps you would want to invest in brands that demonstrate that safety is not something that can be left to chance. Have you ever unwrapped a lavish package of salmon and felt like something was wrong, but you still went ahead and ate it regardless? Is it possible that the warning that we all continue to overlook is contained within that moment of uncertainty? You should express your anxieties, your doubts, and your aspirations. Kirkland's promises will continue to be delivered vacuum-sealed, with danger safely tucked away within, unless customers start demanding that the company do better. This is the official slice of the pie. The most fundamental feature, a warning about allergens in milk, was absent from the label of Kirkland Signature Butter, which prompted the removal of about 80,000 pounds of the product from the shelves of Texas retailers at the end of 2024. A recall of both the salted and unsalted versions of the butter was initiated due to the packaging's failure to provide this critical information. It was classified as a Class 2 recall by the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. The original sentence should be restated in a way that is more natural, but that does not change the sentence's meaning in any way. While it may not cause death right away, it is nevertheless a dangerous weapon if it falls into the wrong hands. For families who are coping with dairy allergies, that line that is missing is more than simply a typographical error. Rashes, difficulties with breathing, or even anaphylaxis in its entirety are all potential consequences of setting off this landmine. It is generally accepted that butter, which is a basic spread that transcends generations, is the most gentle staple in the refrigerator. However, in this case, the very word "contains milk" was nowhere to be found, as if no one considered it to be important. It is similar to the act of selling automobiles without seatbelts. Naturally, the vehicle is able to operate, till the crash occurs. It is similar to when Grandma Ruby served soup without being aware that ghost peppers had been added to it. Seemingly innocent on the surface, but catastrophic consequences lie beneath. Furthermore, do not be misled by the geographic label. The only place where the recall was applicable was Texas. Is it truly our belief that 80,000 pounds remained perfectly within the state's borders? What occurs when a shipment accidentally finds its way into Louisiana, Oklahoma, or perhaps somewhere else? It seems like the entire system here is more about wishing for the best than it is about implementing precautions. Is there anything that has been reported so far? That is not considered to be comfortable. It is purely a matter of chance. For older Americans who are on a restricted budget, butter is an affordable purchase. Large tubs for a low cost without any hassle. However, what happens when such agreement fails to take into account the most vulnerable members of society? Individuals who suffer from allergies, youngsters, or senior citizens who have limited access to healthcare could pay the price, while executives treat it like it is an insignificant oversight. And that's where the true pain is. It is more than just a problem in labeling. It offers an insight into the thought processes of corporations, where safety is seen to be optional when speed and cost take precedence over all other considerations. It is not difficult to resolve the issue. It is a matter of holding oneself responsible. There are other brands that already understand this. All three of the companies, Challenge Butter, Land O'Lakes, and Organic Valley, use bold allergen labeling, more stringent batch controls, and smaller scale operations. That additional penny or two that you spend for each pound can seem like a lot, but the confidence that you gain from it is well worth the cost. You will not cause panic in the emergency room if you are aware of what you are spreading on your toast. It is comparable to spending money to purchase a smoke alarm that is functional in practice. It is not until it comes to your rescue that you become aware of it. Therefore, let us consider the following question. Do you really want to take a chance on something as common as butter? Or should we insist that all labels take into consideration the individuals who are most susceptible to harm? Have you ever questioned the list of ingredients that is provided? Did you pass over a purchase because you had a feeling that something was not right? Is it possible for Kirkland to repair the hole in their golden badge? Or is this the crack that reveals what is truly lurking beneath the surface? It is important to express your anxieties, your fury, and yes, even your aspirations. After all, if a tub of butter is not something that can be relied upon, then what is there that remains on the shelf that is? Beef, which is number 6 on the list. Here is the shocking news, which is wrapped up tightly in plastic. In March of 2025, Costco issued a recall for Chomp's original beef sticks, which were packaged in pouches containing 12 units each. The recall encompassed 22 states due to the potential for metal shards to be concealed within the product. The recall covered a variety of lot codes at establishment number 6222A. What started out as a snack that was advertised as clean protein eventually transformed into a game of Russian roulette that could be played with one's mouth. Supposedly, beef sticks are the food equivalent of an old Chevy pickup truck, which is to say that they are meant to be an essential item in pantries that are straightforward and no nonsense, strong, dependable, and prepared at all times. On the other hand, if you add metal fragments, all of a sudden it is treachery concealed in a wrapper. Imagine a senior who is receiving Social Security benefits as they unwrap what they believe to be a nutritious food item that is both safe and easy to carry with them. One crunch and bite, and what you feel instead of protein is pain. That is not providing nourishment. It is providing neglect with a tag attached to it. How is it even possible for metal to make its way into beef sticks? The best case scenario is that it is a malfunctioning machine component that is releasing slivers into the mixture. At its absolute worst, it is a supply chain that has been cheapened to such an extent by the cutting of corners that inspection, calibration, and replacement parts are seen to be optional expenditures. This is not quality control. It is assembly line poker. After how many shortcuts will someone start to bleed? What is the most malicious aspect of all of this? These snacks were marketed as being healthier choices that were ideal for elderly persons, families in which both parents worked, or anyone who needed to consume protein while on the move. However, the recall was not about well-being. It was about the fact that trust had been broken. This cannot be seen in the same way that germs or hidden allergens are, because it is not invisible. It is physical harm that is just waiting to happen in your teeth, your gums, and possibly your throat. Envision yourself attempting to describe to your dentist how Costco's concept of convenience resulted in a crack in your molar. And what did the business world do in response? A recall notification, in addition to a few lot numbers. There will be no apology tour. It is almost as if they were asking, is there metal in beef? I know it isn't the best, but I'm still giving you your money back. That is not accountability. It is merely indifference that has been coated with public relations gloss. It's comparable to a barber charging you the entire fee for a haircut, even though you were left with a bald area, because technically you still received a haircut. However, customers are not required to participate in this game. There are snacks that are safer than others. Perky Jerky, Duke's Shorty Sausages, and Vermont Smoke and Cure are just a few of the brands that subject their products to rigorous testing for toxins and produce their items in small amounts. They are slightly more expensive, but the fact of the matter is that you are not simply purchasing beef. You are also purchasing peace of mind. It is the knowledge that when you chew, the only sound you will hear is the crunch of high-quality meat, not the sound of your own teeth fracturing. Therefore, this is the punchline. Would you be able to put your faith in a company that allowed metal to get into your food in an effort to cut costs? Alternatively, would you be willing to pay a little bit extra to ensure that the food you consume would not also serve as a threat to your health and safety? Make sure you give it your best go, for the moment metal shards start appearing in your snacks, not only is your food compromised, but your confidence in the system will be shattered as well. Find the area of a parallelogram with base 1200 in height, 8 cm. This is the headline for the corporation. Water. In the month of June 2025, the Coca-Cola Company made the decision to issue a voluntary recall of Topo Chico mineral water. This mineral water was marketed at Costco in packs of 18 16.9-ounce glass bottles. Lot Code 13. The 2541 was taken from over 40 warehouses spread out throughout the states of Texas, Louisiana, Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. Neither broken glass nor problems with the flavor were to blame for the incident. There was a possibility that the product had been contaminated with Pseudomonas aeruginosa, a bacterium that is well known for its tendency to take advantage of those who are vulnerable. Go ahead and strip away any shiny spin. Mineral water that is packaged in bottles is meant to serve as a representation of purity, clarity, and health in a glass. However, it is possible that this high-end brand has done the exact opposite of what was intended, a pathogen that is opportunistic and flourishes in bodies that are weakened. Discovering a rattlesnake curled up inside your refrigerator as you open it to get some new milk is comparable to this. The danger is not the only thing that is shocking. The shocking thing is that no one saw it or that people chose to ignore it. Sometime between the arrival of springtime in Mexico and the shelves of Costco, hygiene was compromised. It is probable that the testing processes were condensed. Sterilization corners are cut in the name of keeping the shelves stocked with merchandise at all times. And who is going to pick up the tab for that shortcut? Senior citizens in the United States, people who are retired, and families who are struggling financially. Individuals who have the conviction that they were purchasing bottled safety. This did not serve as a refreshing drink for someone who was undergoing chemotherapy, attempting to manage their diabetes, or living with a compromised immune system. It was like playing Russian roulette, but with a glass bottle. It is exacerbated by marketing. The package, which consists of a tall glass, and the glittering bubbles both convey an image of elegance, tranquility, and even well-being. But that is the tuxedo that is concealing an illness. When it comes to Pseudomonas, fair play is not a consideration. Although those who are in good health might dismiss the compromise as inconsequential, it has the potential to escalate into pneumonia, bloodstream infections, or even complications that could prove to be fatal. That is an utter betrayal of the highest order for the clients who are most likely to depend on premium hydration. What is the most significant concern? If this was able to sneak through in water, which is a commodity that is marketed as life's most essential requirement, what other product recalls are waiting to happen? Are we going to encounter an increased number of pathogens? Are more quiet lapses excused as voluntary recalls? Costco and Coca-Cola did not broadcast any warnings of concern. They quietly circulated a memorandum and anticipated that everyone would comply without protest. The silence is more powerful than any speech spoken in public. However, consumers do have options available to them. There are options that are safer and more hygienic than those offered by brands like Aquapurse, Spring Water, Mountain Valley, and Spring, as well as local suppliers who have transparent ultraviolet sterilization and thorough microbial testing. They are more expensive by a few cents each bottle, but the peace of mind that comes with your purchase is worth the additional expense. Consider it to be similar to paying for your vehicle to have clean brakes. It is not until your life is spared by safety that you become aware of its importance. So, here is the inquiry that goes straight to the heart of the matter. Would you be willing to risk playing bacterial roulette with the water you drink for the sole reason that it is contained in a stylish glass bottle? Or is it time for us to make demands of brands that consider safety to be a requirement that cannot be negotiated? Have you ever dismissed a cough or throat tickle as a symptom of allergies when it was possible that it could have been something more serious? Is Costco going to repair this pipeline? Or is this merely the first trickle of water before the dam finally breaks? Don't hesitate to express your intuition, because when something as fundamental as water, which is the most basic kind of trust, fails, what else is there to have faith in? Cookie dough is number 8 on the list. This is the headline that ought to send shivers down your spine as you walk through the freezer section. The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, issued a Class 2 recall in May 2024 for around 30 containers of Costco's chocolate chunk frozen cookie dough due to the possibility of the product being contaminated with Salmonella. At a minimum, 21 states have discovered these tubs in their territories: California, Florida, and New York, as well as Colorado and other states. The official reports state that there have not been any sicknesses up to this point. But let's be honest, it does not provide any reassurance. That is luck that has been borrowed. Cookie dough is supposed to be the epitome of comfort food, something that you can either bake in the oven or eat raw with a spoon on the sly. It is the bulk purchase that guarantees delicious moments without any hassle for seniors and working families that are on a budget. However, what they had purchased was a microbiological grenade that was camouflaged as a dessert. When it comes to Salmonella, there is no room for coyness. It has the potential to transform a snow day treat into a visit to the emergency room. This is because it can cause diarrhea, fever, and dehydration, which are symptoms that affect youngsters and the elderly the most. It only takes one innocent nibble to reverse the situation and turn a comfortable situation into a disastrous one. Now, visualize the production line in your mind's eye. The machines are running continuously. Dough is being scooped into tubs by the thousands, and cleaning is being put off till the end of the shift. Are there any swab tests? Perhaps once a week is sufficient. It is not a matter of cleanliness, but rather a matter of gambling. When you come to the realization that the spoon that your grandson licked could be contaminated with a disease that is imperceptible to the naked eye, you will suddenly feel that those labels that say home-style indulgence are just cruel jokes. The irony is quite profound and poignant. Nostalgia is what the package is selling. Kitchens are warm and welcoming, the concept of family members spending time with one another. However, the truth of the matter is that it is more similar to Russian roulette cooked at 350 degrees. Finding out that the stuffing of a teddy bear that you just bought is concealing wires that are not insulated is similar to this situation. The purpose of cookie dough is to bring people joy, not to make them feel threatened. However, if you are prepared to forego Kirkland's roulette wheel, there are safer options available to you. Pasteurization, supervision by the United States Department of Agriculture, and transparent labeling that even goes so far as to inform you of the time at which it is safe to consume raw are all investments that are made by brands such as Sweet Loren's, Nestle Toll House edible cookie dough, and Aunt Sue's cookie dough. Indeed, it is more expensive. However, what you are actually purchasing is confidence. The liberty to hand your grandchildren a spoon without worrying about the consequences of doing so. Comfort food has the potential to also be considered a biohazard. This is the thing that will knock you off your feet. Do we truly feel comfortable prioritizing shiny packaging and smiles over strict factory safety measures? Or do we have a responsibility to insist that cookie dough be as safe as it is delicious? Have you ever taken a bite of something, felt as though something was not quite right, and then disregarded it since the label appeared to be inviting? Do you think that Costco will ever restore baking to its previous level of safety? Alternatively, do we simply find ourselves in a constant cycle of chasing after frozen comfort traps? Express any concerns, anxieties, or weak hopes that you may have, because there ought to never be a warning label included with dessert. All of the recalls, every single broken seal, and each tainted carton are all telling the same narrative at the end of the day. Without making any noise about it, the brands that we had the greatest confidence in have transferred the responsibility for risk to us. Their only goal is to cut pennies off of their expenses, and they are willing to gamble with our health, our families, and our peace of mind in order to achieve that goal. The headlines are likely to fade away, but the actual question will remain relevant. For how much longer are we willing to put up with food systems that treat safety as if it is not required? Give it some thought. Water, eggs, salmon, steak, and even butter are all included on the list. The essentials necessary for living. What can we conclude about the bigger picture if we are unable to rely on the foundations of our kitchen? These are not simply recalls, they are warnings that should be taken seriously. The sirens in our pantries are ringing loudly, compelling us to examine things more closely, to demand more, and to make businesses responsible for their actions. However, there is a surprise in store for you. You do not lack the ability to influence things. We retain the authority to choose what we purchase, what we consume, and what we will not tolerate, despite the fact that we are not in charge of everything. We can ensure that the next generation does not inherit shelves that are filled with danger if we ask more pointed questions, tell our stories, and stand together as a united front. Do not end your search for more knowledge with this video if it provided you with a new understanding of the topic. Sign up for a subscription right away, participate in the discussion, and allow us continue to highlight the issues that companies would rather we not be aware of. Thank you for staying with us to the very end of the show. Do not forget to press the like button if you found this video to be beneficial. And you should also subscribe to the channel in order to ensure that you do not miss out on any of our daily content. At this time, you are welcome to take a look at some of the most recent and highest quality videos that are being displayed on your screen. Farewell, and I hope to see you again in the next video.